they need PT to come in. They need physical therapy. They need your skill sets. They need you to go in and provide that outlet for the knowledge gap that exists in MSK in most primary settings.
Kick it.
Welcome to Strata Stories. My name is Thomas Schreiber. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Strata PT. Strata PT combines your EMR and billing into one automated system to increase revenue and achieve a 99.99% reimbursement rate for physical, occupational, and speech therapy clinics. Recently, Strata PT was ranked the #1 EMR and billing system in outpatient therapy and rehab from Class Research. On today's episode, occupational therapist and practice owner Rafi Salazar guest hosts an episode of Strata Stories. Rafi chats with Colin Rigney, a PT, educator, and the founder of Advanced MSK Ultrasound Center. The guys deep dive into why most primary care offices are starving for MSK expertise and how PTs can fill that gap. How Colin built physician partnerships using diagnostic ultrasound and contract model, why training matters more than tools, and how ultrasound became a door opener, not the whole pitch, the backlash from parts of the PT industry, and why Colin still believes this model is the future. And lastly, tactical advice for PTs ready to take their first step, including what to say, who to talk to, and how to structure it legally. If you'd like to learn more about Strata PT and see how our EMR and billing works, head over to stratapt.com to book a demo. Now, without further delay, here's today's episode.
Well, hey, Colin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Rafi, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. We're filling in here for Paul over at Strata Stories. So we're going to talk about, it seems like, a wide-ranging set of topics here around ultrasound and the MSK field and maybe partnering with physician offices. Before we do a lot of that, though, just kind of give us a quick rundown about you, your background, what brought you to what you're doing now, and how long you've been into it.
Sure. Yeah. I graduated PT school in 2010. I went to A.T. Still University. Had a unique upbringing. My dad was a primary care doctor, owned his own practice for 25 years. So I'm kind of like the coach's kid in that sense.
Okay.
I had a unique exposure to the medical field. Very small town. So it was a company-owned town where my dad was the town doc, had his leather bag, made house calls, not just within like walking distance, but it's a rural area. So oftentimes we drive 50 minutes to an hour to get to somebody's house.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And he took his own films, his own x-rays in the office in the days where it was exposure films and you had to set the patient, develop the films and do all that. And so some of my first memories as a kid were my dad going through residency, and then partnering in a practice in rural California. We lived across the street and helping him out around the office, especially in summers and stuff like that. And so that was my first exposure to medicine, and specifically imaging.
Okay.
And so he also did, his first couple of years, his first year, I know for sure, he was an orthopedic resident.
Okay.
So he started in orthopedics, and then in the days where he was in the U.S. military, in the Army, and he pivoted away from that. There were some issues there, and I think, I don't know the whole story. My dad since passed away 11 years ago, but he went into family medicine. And so he always kept that. He had a strong ortho kind of occupational medicine injury background.
Yeah.
And so he brought that element to his family med practice. And so that was a type of life I was exposed to, from an early age.
Yeah. Well, and given like the population he was serving, it might have served him well, right? Like how many primary care physicians that work in the rural place dealing with folks that are doing a lot of physical manual labor,
Totally.
having the ability to check them out. So I guess that kind of sets the stage. You got into PT. I'm assuming the ultrasound piece is diagnostic ultrasound, right?
Yeah. Diagnostic musculoskeletal ultrasound. Yeah. I was exposed to that in 2009. I was a second year PT student.
Okay.
Initially,
And
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say, so second year PT student, you got into it. I'm sure there the majority of people know what diagnostic ultrasound is, but like just high level overview for maybe somebody that doesn't quite understand
Yeah.
what that is, so we can kind of get that out of the way.
Yeah. So like you have a stethoscope, right? You can
Yeah.
listen to somebody's heart and lungs right there through your ears. Well, ultrasound is similar to that, but it's a visual for the musculoskeletal system. We can watch the musculoskeletal system in live time um, underneath the transducer in a matter of minutes, less
Yeah.
than that, seconds, get an idea of somebody's musculoskeletal health. So things we're talking about are muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones. Common things that people are coming in with injuries or chronic issues with. You can get a very quick snapshot of that from a visual perspective by being able to use it.
Okay. Cool deal. So this would be like somebody comes in, maybe they're orthopedic, maybe they're primary care. My shoulder's been bothering me, or my elbow's been bothering me for 6 months, and they might order diagnostic ultrasound, just kind of check it out. It's less invasive than something else, right?
Exactly. Yep. Many
Cool.
advantages. This point of care, it's immediate. You're saving time, money, the patient's time and money, as well as your time from a referral out, waiting for a radiology report back and schedule the patient back to read in the results, send them to a specialist, right?
Yeah.
So all those things you're able to cut out if you have the ability to do that right there.
Yeah. Awesome. And you said, when we were talking beforehand, you said, well, that's kind of one and the same with like partnering with physicians. So kind of, I guess, connect the dots for, okay, you decide you're going to do diagnostic ultrasound in your practice, I'm assuming. And then kind of what led the way to, okay, we're going to partner physicians, and then maybe we can dive into like what those relationships kind of look like and all of that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it took me a couple of years to get good at it first. Okay. So let's not skip that part, the training part.
Yeah.
Once you establish a base level of training and competency, where you're able to now start to use it on a confident level and discuss with patients on your findings.
Yeah. Does that require advanced certification or something, or is it jurisdiction require, like
well,
dependent on
so
which
if you're a
state you're
physical
in?
therapist, you should be checking with your state practice acts.
Yeah.
I teach radiology and imaging at AT still. It's written into the guide to practice, our ability to diagnose. The AIUM national bodies have designated physical therapists in the same category as medical doctors with the ability to diagnose, and therefore the utilization of something like diagnostic ultrasound in the point of care, they don't see us any different than a doctor, a medical doctor in that sense. So
Okay.
with that said, Rafi, there should still be a standard that things are taught to. The RMSK is a board certification. This stands for Registered in Musculoskeletal Ultrasound. That is the same board certification that any non-radiologist physician would take to hit a standard with competency in MSK ultrasound. So that's where the benchmark starts. That's where things start. Okay. Not all our RMSKs are created equal, in my opinion. Okay. But it is a standard, and that's great. So you spend a few years getting good at that. Okay. Could be, 1, 2, whatever. Right. But let's just get that out of the way first. And then from there, this is my experience. Okay. So my experience was getting out in the field. I did an orthopedic residency as well in physical therapy. So I have that. That all went part and parcel to my training with ultrasound, because ultrasound is only as good as your clinical brain.
Yeah.
It's not a party trick. It's not something you can, take to a marketing lunch and do a few things, and that's the extent of your ability to use it. Like, in my opinion, if you want to truly make a difference at the field, you have to have the scope to back it up. So spend some time doing that. Okay. But then frustration grew with me working in just standard outpatient settings. And I worked with a very entrepreneurial owner who gave me a lot of leash and freeway to explore and also pay for a lot of my training because he knew the dividends that would pay back. So in 2011-12, we did our first, and I've talked about this with Paul on previous episodes, but we did our first venture in multidiscipline practice. So occupational health, medical doctors, PTs in the same setting with ultrasound kind of as the point of care with x-rays, being kind of the medium that we talked through in terms of diagnosis. And yeah, we still use MRIs, but at the same time, having the ability to replace MRIs, replace a lot of time spent, copay spent back and forth and communicating with imaging centers and specialists was really nice, really efficient. And so fast forward some years later, talking with physicians about partnering in the practice, especially primary care sports, and even orthopedic surgeons. In my opinion, there's really not a ton of difference between them all. So let's just break down how many patients in a surgical setting, like in orthopedist office, are truly surgical patients.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably 10% or less, right?
Yeah.
So let's not bog the orthopedist down with that other 90%. Okay, so you take that concept to a primary care or a primary care sports physician, any non-operative physician, they'll know this anyways. Okay, it's not like breaking news, but let's talk about how rehab can fill the gap because they're all burnt out too. Primary care, PM&R, you name it. It's not just PTs who are burnt out with the system. It's across the board, Rafi. Okay, now this is where we have the opportunity to step in and show our worth and value when it comes to leveraging the skill set, not just the ultrasound. Ultrasound is very nice. Don't get me wrong. Okay. It's a key piece of what I do and what I've done, what we train and teach. But having the ability to explain and communicate how, when a patient comes in, especially to a primary care, they're so overwhelmed with diagnostic codes. They're very knowledgeable. They know everything when it comes to the medical system, physiology, anatomy, right? They know disease. They're not all strong with MSK. That's probably their weakest point, most primary cares, right? And so when somebody comes in with shoulder or knee pain, what's their default? Okay, x-rays, MRI, and go to the specialist. I don't know, right? So that's where the conversation, when I go in and talk to a primary care physician and have a discussion around like what our skill set is, because not all of them know what we do. Some of them just think we do
they got a
exercise
20-minute lecture on it in med school or something.
Yeah, right. And so, I mean, PTs a lot of time, especially in most settings, become a dumping ground for, okay, knee pain. You guys go figure it out. I don't know. Just, I'm burnt out. Here, take it, right?
Yeah.
So let's attack this at the source. Let's go to the office directly. And so I started doing this in 2013, 2012, 13. I started just doing direct outreach. And, if you knock on enough doors, you'll have some good conversations and you'll get your opportunities, right? So I started doing that and partnering with a handful of offices who allowed me to come in. First of all, we had to, there was some time to figure it out. Like, what would a schedule look like? It's not like, you go in as a therapist, like, oh, here's my day, right? You got, 8 to 5 lined up. It's, well, let's just take the first couple months and see like how many MSK patients we truly have, right? And you come in twice a week and any MSK patient, first of all, educate yourself or educate the, their staff, the mid-levels, the MAs, and what you do, why you're here. Once they understand why you're here, okay, I got a patient in room 5 now who comes in they have all these other issues, but they also have a lot of knee pain. It's been going on a long time. Why don't you check it out? Right. And so it started from there. All right. And then from there, you start building a system into, okay, now let's organize how we're going to schedule these patients now. Okay. So, the model can go a bunch of different ways. I know Bellin Health has a primary care embedment into for their PTs into primary care offices, where it's kind of like see what comes in approach. Like, okay,
Yeah.
here's they go in for the day, and then it could be 5 patients they see, it could be 15. Don't know, right? What I did, because ultrasound is a key piece, was after we established kind of a cadence of, okay, here's the numbers, like what a week looks like, and we got some data over the past 3 months and extrapolated it, we could make an educated projection on, okay, we have this many MSK patients per week as based on these last 3 months. Let's schedule you 2 days a week, bring your ultrasound, and start there, right? So, patients come in with peripheral joint pain. You do your PT workup, do an MSK workup, and you be the facilitator. Okay. Does this patient fit into one of 3 buckets? Okay. The 3 buckets are, do they go to a specialist straight away? Are they a surgical candidate? Number 2, is it PT and rehab only? Right. And so, okay, I know where to go for each of those. Or does this person require some kind of in between? Most are tweeners, meaning 70% are probably patients who need some kind of intervention medically, and they also need rehab, but they don't need surgery, right? That's a big gap. That's a big gap. And so now, with the ability for, well, not the ability, but the advancement of things like orthobiologics, PRP, and stem cells, patients don't want surgery anymore, man. That's not the thing they want to get referred to first. They don't want to go to a surgeon and talk about surgery. It's just a turnoff. They're open to getting imaging. They want answers, but they don't want surgery as their first answer. And they don't want to talk to a surgeon as their first.
Yeah.
And I'm just totally generalizing. Okay. I'm just talking through the eyes of a consumer. But
well, I think that's a good read too.
Right.
Like, especially the idea of people wanting to know. I think that can't be understated. Like, I've got pain in my shoulder. What's causing it? And sometimes just the anxiety of not knowing is enough to drive people to,
Yeah. And so being able to provide that at the point of care level and just give them some degree of peace of mind. Okay. Like, oh, this doesn't need surgery. Great. That's a huge weight off my mind. Now they're more than willing. And here's where the buy-in comes in. Now they're bought in because you're able to give them an answer, and then they're going to be more compliant with what you're going to recommend next. And that's good for the whole system, not just PT and rehab.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think that again can't be understated. Like, a lot of times patients come into the standard PT clinic and they don't know if you can provide value, if you even know what's going on. The doctor just sent me to you because I have knee pain. Like being able to say, oh, this is what it is right here. Boom. This is what we got to work on. And this is why, just gives the patient a lot of like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. So, all right. So you spent a couple years getting really good. That can't be understated. This is not something you go to like a weekend course to learn diagnostic ultrasound and you're good to go. It takes practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming you're doing this in the clinic, you're practicing, you're getting better. Walk me through, okay, I'm good at it now, to these relationships with physicians. Like, what's the structure of the relationship? Are you billing under them? Or are you still your own practice? Like, how does that piece work? And like, I guess, how do you approach a doctor and say, this is what we want to do?
Well, you can do this a few different ways. Okay. There's more than one way to do this. And I've done it more than one way, but let me tell you how it started. Was we did it through a contract.
Okay.
Just a straight contract, and do incident to billing. And so, my first like really, really good experience was with an orthopedic surgeon. And so I was an extension of him, and I had all the abilities to order MRIs and other things in the office as well. After it took some time to build the trust, but that's what it grew to. And so we did a PT eval.
Okay.
Sometimes manual therapy, Therex, or home exercise, some kind of education, along with the MSK ultrasound. And if they needed like a physical therapy referral, okay, hey, I represent a practice here in the Valley. let's smartly, go there, right? And based on this information I have today, you will continue your care because there's continuity with me and them, right? As an owner, I can, facilitate that info. You're going to have they're going to have my, all my notes, right? Um, and that's a smart way to partner. So
Yeah.
that's how I did it, at first. And then I've done it some other ways too, where, well, it actually turned into a business model. So I'm in the Phoenix area. Um, and I still do the former. Okay. But we partnered with a couple non-surgical, primary care sports docs and PAs, and we just created a PT practice that was sports medicine multidiscipline, but taxonomy as a multidiscipline office. So taxonomy
Okay.
is a medical office. Okay. But it
Yeah.
looks, feels, marketed, smells like a PT practice. The public knows it, the consumer sees it as PT, but it's so much more than that. And so we implemented a training system. This started in 2019. We implemented a training system for ultrasound for our higher performing PTs to learn ultrasound, be the facilitator, the gatekeeper. So all the patients come in as direct access, because it's a medical office, is direct access. And they see the PT first, get their imaging. We have x-rays on site too. And so they get that point of care. And the PT works it up and decides to make a referral if they fit into those buckets that I described earlier, right? And of course, we have rehab that's the foundation. So that's one way to do it. Okay, but if somebody is listening to this and looking to get started, my suggestion, even if you don't know ultrasound, doesn't have to be around. That's just my tool set. That's my bag, right?
Yeah. That was what got you into the door.
That's what got me in the door. But you don't have to have that in order to get in the door, guys. This is something where you have a skill set that people need. And I think you do have to have an entrepreneurial enough trigger. You don't need to be an owner, but you have to want to be incentivized to, whether it's for the profession, for your business, for your company, your location, your staff, whatever it is, you got to market and present yourself to your 15-mile radius of potential referral sources. And out of all those referral resources, I guarantee you one or two, all you need is one or two to allow you to get in the door and get in the office and make a foothold. They're looking for this, guys. This is something that is totally underutilized. So myself and there's a handful of others in the country who are vocal about this. They need PT to come in. They need physical therapy. They need your skill sets. They need you to go in and provide that outlet for the knowledge gap that exists in MSK in most primary settings. So with or without ultrasound, I mean, ultrasound was just an easy thing for me because most of these primary care offices are ACO. They're with ACOs, right? They're cost saving. They don't want it they're MRIs and specialty referrals. That's cost prohibitive. That's not cost saving, right? And so it's an easy convert to say, okay, PT and ultrasound you mean we can get the same kind of information from a PT and ultrasound as we do from a specialist in MRI, at a tenth of the cost? Sign me up, right? That's easy
and much quicker. Yeah.
and much quicker, right? But for PT alone, we have the skill set to do that. So I guess the point I'm making passionately is, with or without ultrasound, there's opportunities abound, and the market's starving for it.
Yeah. So I guess then this is how you set it up yourself. What does let's say somebody really wants to do it. What should they prioritize when it comes to approaching an MD office? Are we talking, do they need to worry about legal contracts and credentialing, or is it really just,
No,
hey, this is the value I can provide. This is, how we might be able to work it. And as one of my previous business partners used to say, we're going to build the plane as we're flying it.
no. Well, first of all, Rafi, you have to enter the conversation that's in their head first.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is they're burnt out. They don't know how to manage MSK. How do you approach that conversation constructively? And as you being part of the solution. Yeah, that's first thing. Don't worry about contracts and liability, whatever. You can that business model I described with billing incident 2
Yeah.
is totally safe. I mean, you gotta bring your liability in, you gotta be covered. And if that means getting an extra whatever, it's
Whatever.
easy to get
Yeah.
insured as a PT. It's not hard as a contractor. And start there and get a basic buffer of paperwork first. Okay, that's kind of a given. Okay, but once you get through that part, um, the rest is you now. That so 97 codes are 97 codes. CPD, right? Doctors can build 97 whatever 112 whatever Therex, manual therapy 110. They can build those the same. Okay. But now they're billing it out under a licensed PT who has this agreement to perform these services in their office under their MPI. Okay. That's all you need.
Yeah. And then how does the PT get paid then? Is it just per patient, whatever the rate is that
Yeah,
you agree to, or?
sure. Well, I mean, you can rent your time. You can,
Yeah.
meaning, like you establish, and this is where, I leave it open-ended because there's so many ways to do it. You can do it per patient. I don't think you can do a profit share, because of Stark,
Kickbacks
but
and stuff like that. Yeah.
you can rent your time as like a bulk time, or you can rent your time, like it could be by the week, by the month, whatever it is. That's totally above board.
Yeah, I like that because it encourages thinking outside of this fee for service,
Right.
model or whatever.
Exactly.
Whatever. We're just going to provide value. We'll figure out how we pay for it and make it work.
Exactly.
Once we show that we're doing something. So, okay, I like that. We've already kind of talked about some of the benefits, right? It's quicker. The patient's getting immediate answers to what potentially could be going wrong and a path forward that hopefully doesn't involve surgery and all these things that patients are trying to avoid. Are there any challenges in this type of model where you're kind of integrated in-house with the physician group that maybe you didn't see when you were starting? You're like, oh, this is something we need to like take into account now.
The biggest challenge, first of all, I've never encountered a major challenge. Like, oh
Okay.
crap, this might not work because I didn't think of this.
Yeah.
I've never had that happen. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm just giving my experience. The biggest challenge I would say to making it successful and optimal is the way you educate and communicate, not just with the doctor or whoever. Like, don't assume because you had a couple of conversations, you got yourself in the door in a slot means that like you're in. Okay.
Yeah.
You should bring lunch. You should make friends with the staff, the front desk, the MAs in a way that is constructive and team oriented and looking to build relationships. Because if you do the small things right, they're like, oh, MSK, Colin, like, oh, joint pain, like they think of you, okay, in a way that they would not think of you if you didn't build relationships.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest. I think, Rafi, honestly, like if you ask that question, I would say that's the biggest thing to consider. Now you can get it done if you're a complete a-hole and whatever, but it wouldn't be ideal. It wouldn't be optimal. Like you wouldn't have everybody's buy-in. If you want everybody's buy-in and you want to see the MSK patients that the mission, that you set out for the mission to accomplish, you have to communicate well, and people on the team and where you're located has to know why you're there. What's your mission, right? And communicate that well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's huge. I was just talking with somebody the other day in our clinic, and I was like, guys, it's usually not like big giant stuff that breaks down relationships. It's the little
Small
things,
things.
like
Yeah.
the people just knowing something,
Yeah.
or why you're doing something a certain way, or what, maybe why you're requesting this versus that. Like, it's all those little bits of
Yeah.
communication that kind of stack up over time that either mean thumbs up or thumbs down for a relationship often, right?
It is. Yeah. And, the entrepreneurial side of me, sometimes I bypass a lot of that, not because I intended to, but because just I'm mission driven. I don't always communicate it well. You got to step back and allow yourself to be in the other person's shoes who doesn't think like you, right? And communicate that.
Yeah. Chip and Dan Heath call it in one of their books, the curse of knowledge,
Yeah.
right? Like we
Right.
know what we do, we know the value we provide, and we just assume everybody else does, right? Like,
Totally.
like, why are you not referring everybody to me?
Right. Exactly.
So, all righty. Well, let's talk a little bit then about, we're partnering, down the line, we're partnering with PT with medical practices and all that. And there's this whole like maybe controversy in APTA. APTA has come out publicly and opposed like physician-owned PT services. They're concerned about, self-referral issues and integrity of care. Like, how do you respond to people who might hear about what you're doing and then kind of like freak out about those topics in particular?
I don't care. Honestly, man,
Enough said, right?
I don't care. I would say follow me for a day. Like, let's have a conversation and talk. I don't have a blanket like response. I don't have a canned response. I'm so focused on what we do and why we do it that stuff doesn't matter to me. I teach in institutions.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a renegade when it comes to those sorts of things, but I also understand the larger mission, and if you want other people to buy into the larger mission, you have to accommodate differences of opinion. And when you turn off half of the room, you actually engage 100% of the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't do this for likes. I don't do it for praise. I don't do it for anything else other than there's something larger I'm working on that I know works, that I know is good, and people need it. The community needs it. And if that turns off a lot of people, that's really good.
Yeah.
Because that means they're paying attention, right? And they don't have to agree. That's not why I'm doing it. You know what I mean? So I'm open to, again, we're an open book when it comes to what we do. We have shadow days all the time. People can come follow us and watch how we partner. Like, there's a handful of offices here in the Valley that are function as training sites for us. And so we have people coming in all the time from all over the country. And if somebody really cares enough to get off their keyboard and come check it out for real, the door's open.
Yeah. That's awesome. Do you take a lot of students, I guess? You get a bunch of, if you're teaching, I'm sure you got some coming through on clinical rotations and stuff like that.
I don't take PT students anymore.
Okay.
But our locations do.
Okay.
So we have 9-10 locations here in the Phoenix area.
Okay.
That take PT
awesome.
students. I have my ultrasound training company is a different entity. It's a fellowship program where we have medical doctors, athletic trainers, physical therapists, postdoctorate, who want to pursue the RMSK and do it in a way that involves higher standards. Like that's a big mission of mine right now. And so anybody who wants to come and shadow there, like that's what I'm describing. They can also come to our PD practices as well and watch how our physical therapists are driving the care and working with the medical providers. That's it's all an open book, dude. But yeah, I welcome anybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. As a former professor myself, I always think of like, man, there's so many PTs and OTs doing cool things out there. And oftentimes, like in school, they just don't get the students don't get exposure to it, or they might have heard about it. And then by the time they get out, they're,
Yeah.
They not miss an opportunity, but they're kind of already biased because they never
Totally.
saw it in school,
Yeah.
you know?
Half my students I teach in residential, like they hate me. They don't get it. Well, I shouldn't say they don't get it. That's unfair. Um, I don't communicate it always well, and they see it as they see it as advanced or arrogant, and it's really
Yeah.
that's they're missing a side of it because they've already been groomed and processed to from the other side at that point. You know what I mean? And I'm just presenting the other side, and they don't step back to look at it. But back to my engagement of 100% of the room, you know what I mean? It falls back to
Yeah.
that for me, and that's kind of my style. I've grown to embrace that, and I think that over time that will. I mean, over time that's really, if you want to engage a larger community, you have to get that. You have to get that out of people.
For sure. Awesome. Well, cool deal. We're getting near the bottom here. If people want to learn more about you, maybe about the diagnostic ultrasound, or just connect with you in general, like where do you point people?
Yeah. We have a website, amsku.com. The
Okay.
business is Advanced Musculoskeletal Ultrasound Center. That is
Okay.
our postdoctorate level training for MSK ultrasound. Our physical therapy company, sports medicine practice here in the Valley, is Modern Physical Therapy. And that website is getmodern.com.
Oh, I like that.
Getmodernmedicine.com.
I like
And
that
you can find
domain.
out more information about that.
Yeah.
Maybe you could put it in the show notes or something, or if you need it from me,
Yeah.
I'll give it to you.
Cool deal.
But amsku.com is our ultrasound training company, and we're really riding a good wave right now of getting the larger mission out to the bigger community. And so this is bigger than just It's obviously, I'm rehab, I'm biased, that's where I'm from, who I like to talk to the most. But this is a bigger mission, to bring more of us together in a way that's constructive and better for the community. Our doctors, our trainers, our sonographers, our physical therapists. If you have the ability to use ultrasounds in your hands with the patient in real time, that's real power. Okay, with AI coming, it's going to change most of radiology. Okay, but dynamic imaging, it'll be the last to affect dynamic imaging, in my opinion. And so you can recession proof your practice by learning the skills of ultrasound.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's big.
Awesome. Cool deal. Well, Colin, thanks so much, man.
Appreciate it, Rafi. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Strata Stories. Strata PT combines your EMR and billing into one automated system to increase revenue and achieve a 99.99% reimbursement rate for physical, occupational, and speech therapy clinics. If you'd like to learn more about Strata PT and see how our EMR and billing services work, head over to stratapt.com to book a demo.